Welcome to the Business Basics segment of RX for Justice, your essential resource as a legal forensic nurse consultant. In each episode, we unpack the core skills and knowledge needed to excel in the legal landscape. Whether you're fine-tuning your expertise or just beginning your journey, join us for concise, powerful insights that propel your career forward. Let's dive into the intersection of law and healthcare and enhance your role in delivering justice. Hey, nurse friend, Janice Dolnick and Ms. Callie Castro here. Hello, Callie.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I am wonderful.
I'm excited to talk
Hi,
about
everybody.
this. I am
Me
excited.
too.
You know, a lot of people, a lot of nurses, it's very intriguing to know, like, okay, this is cool that I'm going to work up these personal injury cases, but how exactly does this process work? Like, what is the start to finish process of a injury case for these attorneys, the legal process. So we're going to go over that today with you guys. And let me share a bit about how this all works in a way that hopefully breaks it down in just layman's terms so you totally get it. And if you ever find yourself in an accident, you will know how the process is also worked up. So first you have the injury, right? The injury occurs. So the process begins when someone is injured, possibly due to a car accident, a slip and fall, or any other accident where someone else may be at fault. So I'm taking my dog for a walk and suddenly this pit bull comes running across the street. It attacks my dog and I try to save my dog and then it attacks me. So you have this injury initially that happens. What kind of PI cases have we worked on, Callie, in the past? Besides the typical car accident.
There's, people are in car accidents every day. We did one, someone was going on a walk through the neighborhood and the neighborhood had not fixed the sidewalk. So you know how sometimes it will raise up part of it, and she tripped and she fell and she ended up, wrist injuries, abrasions, all, injuries. And so it ended up a lawsuit against the HOA because they were responsible for maintaining all of the public grounds, including the sidewalks within that community.
I had one, you're right. I had one, it was a 76-year-old woman who tripped over a pew at church.
Oh.
Yeah, she won. Yeah. So any type of injury really, and some of these, and they call them frivolous lawsuits, but what we found is that sometimes people pay out even for frivolous lawsuits, right? Just so that their name doesn't get smashed or, hey, you know what? It's easier if I just pay this person to go away. And it doesn't always mean that they're guilty, but it ends up making them look guilty.
Yes.
So we've seen that too. Lots of frivolous lawsuits. Remember the one? Did it come up as a personal injury attorney drinking hot coffee from McDonald's and getting burned, right?
Spilling. I mean, don't we all know coffee is hot? But hey, they won a lot of money.
So
now your coffee cup does tell you
this is hot.
Caution.
Caution, yes. For every disclaimer or every caution,
it's because there was a lawsuit.
Somebody did something they shouldn't have done, right? It's like common sense. Like, don't put this plastic bag over your head. Oh, okay. All right. So medical care. So the injury happens, and then what happens? You get burned by your cup of coffee, and the injured person, also known as the plaintiff or the complaintiff, that's how I like to remember it, the person complaining of an injury, then goes and seeks medical advice, right? They're going to seek treatment for those injuries. And this step is crucial when you're looking at receiving money. You have to show that you went and sought medical care, right? Like this was bad enough that I actually had to go and receive some care for this. And documenting those injuries are really important for proving or showing, to the attorney that you then choose to reach out to that, hey, this happened, and that's an important part of the legal process. I was going to add something here, and I just totally forgot. But I was going back to the coffee thought. Anyhow, you start that process. You go out and you seek the doctor. That's what I was going to say. So, the people who get in like a car accident, like on the freeway, and they somehow just get out of the car and walk out. They're like, I'm fine. Nurses, you understand this. Nothing happened to me. And they're like, you need to go to the hospital. Like, no. the not going to the hospital and then down the road seeking compensation or going to an attorney, that can actually really harm a case. So if you get hurt, you don't have to be Superman and be like, I'm fine, I didn't get hurt. You got hit at 80 miles per hour. You're going to hurt in the next 3 to 5 days or the next morning, right? Go and see a doctor immediately, because if you do have the right to compensation because you were really injured, that has to be documented. I
Yeah,
am
I
not a
think that's
lawyer.
really important.
Yeah.
But that's always the first thing we look at when we're
Mhm.
working up these personal injury cases is, the ambulance and ER records.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
if you had an injury, today, and then you don't go see the chiropractor for 4 more weeks, and then
Right.
you call an attorney and you're like, 4 weeks ago I was in this accident and now I'm going to the chiropractor. It's not as good of a case. And
Yeah.
you may have been entitled to more compensation had you not tried to be Superman and say you were okay.
Yeah. Or some of the lawyers will be like, man, it's been too long. I don't know if I want to take that
Yeah.
case, right? Again, notice we are not attorneys and we're not giving legal advice. All right, let's continue. So after the medical care, that's when they consult with a lawyer, right? So the injured person then decides, hey, I'm going to call up a lawyer, a personal injury lawyer, to discuss whether I have a viable claim or not against this person or entity, like you said, the HOA, which I believe to be responsible. So that person that they believe is responsible is now known as the defendant. So once they, reach out to an attorney, if an attorney, here's what usually happens. They get the case and they look through it. And a lot of times right from the start, before they do any investigation, they usually know if they want to take the case or not. Sometimes this is where they will hire a legal forensic nurse to say, hey, I think there might be something here, but I'm not 100% sure. Can you do a merit review for us? So this is where a nurse would then look through the injuries and let the lawyer know, yeah, hey, I do think there's some medical merit in this case, and perhaps you should pursue it or look into pursuing it. So enter the legal forensic nurse. This right here could be the step where you do start working with the attorney um, to see if this is a case that they do want to go ahead and move forward with. So when the attorney decides, hey, I want to move forward with this, or perhaps they want to see if there's some merit, they will start to do some sort of investigation. So they're going to go ahead and they're going to look into any evidence they can gather, medical records, like Callie said, police reports, ambulance reports, the initial ER reports, any witness statements or anything, somebody saw when they were there. And then just any other documentation to support the case. So
Incident report.
incident
That's a big thing
reports.
if they're somewhere, if an injury happens at,
Mm-hmm.
say you were at Walmart and you fell, they're going to do an incident report.
Yep.
Walmart is.
And they'll try to say, and right, Callie, did they not tell you in nursing school that incident reports are private and they can't request them?
They sure did tell us that. That's not true.
It's not true. Don't worry. Write it all down in an incident report and tell on yourself. No. So that's something to consider, is that we learned that incident reports can actually be called into trial. It really is up to the judge what they allow in or what is admissible and what is not. So we've seen those incident reports used in trial, which we all thought were private. Side note. Yeah, you're right. You can ask for them, and if they turn it over, suddenly it becomes something everyone can look at. Whether it's allowed further, down, further into the process is up to the judge. But yeah, it can be seen. It is not secretive or private like they teach us in nursing school. Um, so once they start doing that investigation, the nurse here, so say they decide to take the case, this is where the nurse can then start to help the attorney with figuring out what it is they're missing, right? So they're going to say, hey, you know what? This is great. Thank you for sending over, quote unquote, all the records, but we know they never have all the records, right?
Ever.
Ever. She says ever, guys, ever. You will never get a full set of records. End of story. So this is where the nurse gets to, show their expertise and say, hey, these are great. Thanks for sending over the records, but you still need A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z, because you're missing all of these documents that are going to help support or strengthen your case, or perhaps show us some red flags that we want to be aware of. So the nurse does help with investigation on these PI cases. They do help build the case and bring in some evidence. Oh, I was going to say, the stoplight cameras that can be pulled in, right? If there's a car accident case, any cameras in a building or any type of surveillance that they can get their hands on, that can also be pulled in as part of the investigation. And so that can be very helpful. So now that the lawyer has done the investigation and they believe, hey, we do have a case, then the next part is the demand letter, right? We all familiar with demand letters. So after reviewing the case, right, if the lawyer believes there is a valid claim, they will then send a demand letter to the defendant or perhaps their insurance company, depending on who they're going after and who they see the biggest deep pockets with, right? Who has the most money here, the client or the insurance company? I don't know. And they're going to outline the injury and the compensation requested. Hey, your client, or I'm sorry, hey, my client was at your church. He tripped over a pew and broke his right leg. I want $300,000 by tomorrow, whatever their guidelines are. And from that point, defense is either going to say, and they most always say, we didn't do it. We deny all the claims, go away. I don't know that I've ever had anyone just go, okay, sure, here you go, here's the money, right? They're going to come back and they're going to say naturally, there's nothing here, go away. And if they don't like the answer, which they usually don't, if they decide, hey, let's hop on the phone and negotiate this, like, look, you are at fault. This is going to smear your name all over the community. You don't want to be known as the church of God that, doesn't take care of their people. Maybe you do want to give your client or my client $20K. They're going to try to come up with some negotiations and some settlement offers with them. The goal would be to come up with a settlement that, helps the plaintiff cover their medical costs, any lost wages, pain and suffering, and any other damages outside of court, because court and trial is very expensive. Very, 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 very expensive for both parties involved. And so some of these bigger companies you'll see, and this is something I didn't know until I started doing this, when you see people just like settle and just like pay people to go away, it doesn't necessarily mean they're guilty, right? It's just like, okay, do I really want the whole nation to know that this person tripped over the pew at my church? No, here, how much money do you need? Here's $300K. Keep it confidential. Don't tell nobody, go away, right? We see that too.
And sometimes the trial, like litigation, can cost more than
the amount of
what
money
you're
anyone's
going to pay out. Yeah, for the church to pay out the settlement may be cheaper than them paying their attorneys to go
defend themselves.
And yeah,
isn't the law such an interesting thing? Boy, have we learned a lot in the last few years. It's not what I thought. It's not very textbook.
It's not what I thought at all. No, it's not.
This is not very textbook whatsoever. I think nurses, we really like textbook, right? We're like, what's the algorithm for this? And then you get into this structure of law and you're just like, well, that doesn't make sense. And then people say, well, it's illegal to do this. I'm like, well, is it? Because it seems to me that it's only illegal if somebody actually implements the law. Like
if somebody does something about it being illegal.
Yeah, we're learning a lot, you guys. There's a whole lot to learn. So say they're like, absolutely not, you can't give me $20K, I want $1 million, then their attorney's going to then file the lawsuit. So if negotiation does not result in those settlements, the next step is to file the lawsuit in the courts. The lawyer goes down, they file the lawsuit, and then this involves the legal preparation of the documents to state the case against the defendant. So Callie did me wrong. She wrecked my car by hitting me at 80 miles per hour. These are all the things I think I'm entitled to, and these are our demands, basically. From that point, once the lawsuit is filed, then you have what's called the discovery process. So this is the process where both sides exchange information through discovery, and it involves sending questions and requests for documents to each other. And then also it can involve deposition, where each party is questioned under oath. So what some people don't realize is, so for discovery, nurses that are working up cases as legal forensic nurses, you can assist with discovery here as well. So you can help create those questions that they need to ask opposing counsel. We do that a lot. We help draft discovery questions. Any other documents that you're like, well, you know what, they're hiding the ER visit from this date. We need to discover that. You need to request that in discovery. So maybe there's documents that the other side is not turning over because they know like it might show guilt right away. So you've got to have a team that's smart enough to know what's missing, right? That's where nurses come into play. Let me tell you right now. You guys are amazing. And the things that nurses catch that lawyers don't catch, especially because lawyers don't have a lot of experience in the hospital, right? You're going to catch a lot more. And it helps these attorneys get much bigger settlements because there's things they don't know to request. So side note, just so you know, you are a very
Bring a
valuable
ton of
part.
value.
Oh, so
Yes.
much value. So much value. And then also deposition. So as a legal forensic nurse consultant, you can also help with deposition questions. So help, draft those questions. Like you're going to say, hey, you need to ask them A, B, C, and D. Maybe this will help give us an answer we've been looking for, right? So you can help discover, or you can help draft those deposition questions. Most attorneys have their own set of depo questions, and it's pretty templated from what I've seen. And so unless, maybe it's a TBI or something and they know, but what's nice is when the nurse gets in there, those questions tend to give them um, a lot more to go on. But then it's the lawyer's job because they have they're smart, man, right? Like we've stepped back and watched these depositions where we didn't know it was coming. We're like, oh, he's smart. So they have their own strategies. They have their own spin. They know how to ask these questions in a way that's really going to push the person up against a wall and they're not going to have a way out. So they're very strategic in how they ask the questions. And so even if you do draft questions, know that they might not be asked, or they might be asked in a totally different way you wouldn't think because your attorney is thinking down the road. Like they're anticipating what that person's probably going to say in response to that question. And then they're going to ask the question in 30 different ways to hang the person up, right? So discovery is an interesting process. As a legal forensic nurse consultant, you can absolutely help with that process. And then we have mediation and negotiation. So after everybody's been torn apart and they're all feeling naked, they can request almost anything. It's supposed to be related to the case, but let me tell you some of the things we've seen requested. I mean, they can ask for your text messages, for your Instagram messages. They can ask for some pretty personal information in the process of a deposition. And a side note, guys, can I just side note this? If you ever were to think of suing someone, a lot of people think if they sue someone that they're not subject to any of this for some reason. But please know, if you decide to sue someone, they have just the same rights as you do to turn around and depose you and open up your life and doors and secret closets to the world too. So it's a funny thing I've seen is like people are like, well, I'll just sue them. Well, they may just open up doors you didn't want open. So something to think about if you just are sue happy, I guess. You're just as, they have the right to ask and request the same thing. So I don't think a lot of people are aware of that when they decide they want to make an accusation against somebody, especially in these frivolous lawsuits, right? Like, oh, I'm going to just sue them for 80K because they make a lot of money. I want their money. Okay. You want to play that way? Here we go. Right. Anyway.
Yeah, you can countersue. And I think people
don't realize that. Yeah. So, you want to play? Let's play.
And when you sue someone, the burden of proof is on you. Like if I'm suing you, I have to prove my theory. You don't have to prove anything.
Yeah,
it's me having to provide everything.
This is chess. This ain't checkers. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So then after we've done all that, then we're going to sit down. There's another attempt at mediation and negotiation. Why? Because trial is now set and it's down the road and it is super expensive. And here's the problem. If your lawyers look at the trial and they see, oh, guys, trials, we're talking $300K just for a trial. Like that's like starting fees. Okay. We don't know how long this trial is going to last. So if the lawyer is looking at this trial coming up in May and going, wow, there's maybe $12 in this whole case, like they really want to avoid trial. Both sides want to avoid trial. Both, time is money. That's time they could be spending with other clients who maybe have real lawsuits with real money. So there's a lot of different thoughts going into this. And so they want to settle before trial because of that expense. So they'll sit down and they'll try to have negotiations again, trying to settle it out of court. And a lot of times I think that a majority do end up settling in mediation or with negotiation at this point in a personal injury claim, because most attorneys do not want to go to trial. Because unless it's something really, really big, it is a lot of effort. It is a lot of time. It is a lot of expense. And if you're doing trial after trial after trial, that's a lot of preparation, and you're doing less and less work, right? You're really not doing a lot of other cases. Like all your caseload is kind of on pause when you're in trial. I mean, these trial lawyers, they live, breathe, sleep, their trial. They go away, they unplug. They're gone. I know, because I was married to one. They disappear for a few weeks at a time because they have to give their client their full focus. So it's a lot. So at that point, they're like, hey, can we settle this? What is going to make everyone happy? If that does not happen and nobody can agree, then it fails, mediation fails, then that's when we go, okay, well, I guess we're going to trial. And during the trial, both sides present their evidence and their arguments, and the judge or the jury, so you can have a jury trial or you can have a trial where you just go in front of the judge. They decide whether the defendant is legally responsible for the plaintiff's injuries, and if so, how much they should be paid in those damages. So we head to trial, and then there's a verdict and a settlement, right? So if the trial results in a verdict favoring the plaintiff, the defendant is then ordered to pay a specified amount of money. Side note, if your defendant is broke, it's really difficult to collect money from a broke person. So another reason they try to avoid trial, right, Callie?
Exactly.
So sometimes the parties might still negotiate a settlement while preparing for an appeal. So you have the right to an appeal. So if you don't like the result of the trial, you do have an appeal process, and the losing party has a right to appeal the decision to a higher court if they believe there were legal errors that affected the outcome of the trial. This is a side note because we're talking personal injury, but in some of these criminal cases where people are convicted, there is an appeal process. Anyway, and then collection. Once the final verdict is in and the appeal process has been exhausted and they can't get it, the winning party then gets to collect that awarded amount if that awarded amount exists. And this can involve some additional legal steps, especially if the losing party, one, refuses to pay, or two, the losing party doesn't have any money. We saw an option of, what was it? Not like, it was similar to like putting a lien on their house. In the event that they died, like all the sales proceeds would go to the family or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they can try to, and it depends if it's an individual that is being sued, you can try bank account,
drafting
liens and all of that, drafting and intercepting your paychecks and all of that. But again, still comes down to laws in the state and specific,
and
jurisdictions and if there's money.
If there's money.
Yeah.
So the rule, what was I going to say? I think we were talking about this earlier. I'm like, really just settle your problems out of court. No, try not to have any problems in your life. That'll make it easier.
Yeah.
It is an interesting process. I think, going through it and seeing it more, I thought as a newbie, it was very black and white. And what I've learned is it is very gray. It's all gray.
It's all gray. I don't think there's any black and white.
No black and white. In this. There is no this or that. There very much is a big gray area for a lot of things, It's kind of like the field of legal forensic nurse consulting when nurses are looking into it and, someone says, oh, you have to be a nurse for 10 years. It's like, no, actually, that's not true.
You could be a nurse since yesterday and do it.
Do it.
Yeah. It's really up to the attorney on who they want to use.
Yeah. 100%. So this is a really quick breakdown and run through of kind of the process of a personal injury from start to finish. Anything you want to add, Kelly?
No, I think this is a really good overview. Breaks it down into the simplest terms that we can.
We can, right? Thank you for joining us on this episode of Business Basics. If you'd like to learn more about the field of legal forensic nurse consulting, please visit our website at legalforensicnurse.com, or you can send us an email at info@legalforensicnurse.com. We look forward to hearing from you.